Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto. Hope you're all doing great. Hope you're all holding out relatively well in these market situations. I wanted to do a full update here on the current situation. Bitcoin is still at those lows. As you can see, we spiked down to a low of 86,870 on Coinbase. But the price has not bounced up yet. So what I wanted to do in this video is take a look at Bitcoin, take a look at the markets with that as well, and talk about whether this was the bottom, yes or no. Can we actually expect some sort of recovery, or should we expect some more bearish pressure here into our next support level between 85 and 83,000, because that's what we're talking about. So that's what I wanted to talk about. We'll cover XRP as well. We'll talk about some altcoins outside of that too, but altcoins, I mean, in general right now, what you can see and what the situation is that the Bitcoin dominance is relatively high, as you can see, and that a lot of altcoins right now are just very correlated. So it doesn't make sense. There's probably some altcoins that are outperforming the rest, and you can see that right here. But it's mostly strange coins such as Peanut or Myro, right? And I don't think there's a lot of value talking about those too extensively. But all right. Let's get into the markets. So, look, it's very difficult always to analyze whether this is the bottom or not. And honestly, I do think we will know within the next 2 hours, because the US market is opening in 20 minutes. We do not have any specific US news coming out, but that is usually when most of the volume enters the markets. Even though the volume right now is already very high. The volume is around $80 billion. In the last 24 hours for Bitcoin, but then in the next 20 minutes is probably when we're going to see what the US thinks, and since that's the most capital intensive place in the world, especially also in crypto, and people tend to forget that, that's going to determine it. So there's a couple of things. First of all, the volume is very high, all right, and what you want to see in a bottom, in a capitulation event, right, is that the liquidations are high and the volume is high, and that is true, all right. If you take a look at the liquidations here, they're very high yesterday and today. And then outside of that, the volume is also relatively high. $80 billion, especially compared to the volume we've had in the last couple of weeks, is extremely high. However, usually what happens is that we get that spike and then an instant recovery. And at this point of time, we have not seen that instant recovery yet. That's one of the signs I'm looking at in thinking that this is not yet the bottom. Now, outside of that, I actually think the fundamentals around the crypto market, such as the dollar strength index being bearish, but also stocks bouncing relatively nicely. Stocks are right now at the same levels as yesterday afternoon. Bitcoin certainly is not. So those fundamentals around the market are quite good. But then again, you could argue that the fact that Bitcoin is no longer, or at least not in the last 24 hours, that correlated to the S&P 500, you could also interpret that as something that is bearish, all right? So even though I think ultimately it's bullish, it's mixed, or at least it's up for debate whether the decoupling between Bitcoin and the S&P 500 is something that Bitcoin will make up, all right? So that we will actually see Bitcoin bounce up to get back to that correlation with the S&P 500, or whether this is a sign that Bitcoin in this case is too risky and is something very, very different from the S&P 500, and that the correlation will not return. And then outside of that, I think when we take a look at some crypto-specific fundamentals, I think the USDT dominance is not at a major resistance level yet. We did hit that, but the strongest resistance level for the USDT dominance is slightly higher. So with all of that, and then also the fundamental uncertainties in mind with the tariffs, but also what's going on right now with the peace talks, and just in general, what seems to be a bit of a split about the Ukraine-Russian war, without going into politics, I think it's still more likely to assume that we're going lower. Now, ultimately, we're going to get a spike up, right? Eventually, we will get a spike up, but the big question is, all right, well, if Bitcoin wants to remain bullish here, we need to reclaim this level here at 92 and 93. So I think we have a good chance to actually spike up towards 91, 93. But if we're unable to reclaim that level, if we're unable to close above that with volume, and we just reject from this level and it's a bearish confirmation, then Bitcoin is turning more bearish, and then it's very likely, and I think in general you should expect that we're going to drop down into that next support level right here at 84,000. So that's what I think is most likely, but that is, it's kind of assuming that the worst is going to happen, which would be a drop into 84, and after that a drop into 78,000 right here. Assume that that's the worst, and then if we are able to get that reclaim here at 91, 92,000, I will try and change my bias, all right? But we need a lot of volume, we need a lot of strength to actually do that, and I don't see that at this point of time, and that's why I'm telling you, I think it's most likely we're going lower. Now, for XRP, the situation is quite similar, even though I would argue XRP is actually still holding on better, because if Bitcoin doesn't get that reclaim, then it's bearish. If XRP doesn't get the reclaim here, or if XRP drops down lower, you could still argue that we're in this big consolidation right here. So I think XRP is actually pretty fine, but short term, what I would expect is that we are, same as with Bitcoin, due to the correlation in the markets, that we are going to drop down lower, with some strong support levels being $2 and 1.75. Now, talking about the rest of the markets, there's not much I want to report on. We had some ETF applications, Polkadot, and the Cardano application got acknowledged yesterday, so that's interesting, but that doesn't really mean that much for now. And then outside of that, I mean, when we take a look at the volume, there are certain coins like Vana, Peanut that are pulling a lot of volume. CowSwap is up 47% over the course of today due to a BitThumb listing, or an Upbit listing, I think, a Korean exchange. Outside of that, there's not much that has a lot of volume that's interesting in my opinion. Maybe something like IP or Story Protocol, that is Story Protocol, and Litecoin is also still quite interesting here. As you can see, Litecoin is actually holding on very fine. So there are definitely still coins that are worth to keep an eye on and potentially buy, but you have to be very selective, right? And IP, which I talked about, Story Protocol, for me is more of a short, but you can see that right now it's consolidating, so wait for the consolidation to break and then make a decision. But that's what I think you need to know regarding the markets for now. So if you do have any questions, anything, let me know. I will try my best to keep you updated on the situation and everything. For now, thank you for watching, take care, and bye.